This is hands-on with our new Wildlands Waterfall. So here are the core pieces. We have the base piece, which is the spill out. It's a 3x6 footprint. Then we have the two upper pieces, which are nestled inside these cutout escarpments. So we'll pop each of them out. They really should be cut out cliffs because they're only 38 millimeters high, but we'll talk about it in a second. This is the Cascading Waterfall. It goes down at an angle. It's 38 millimeters high, and it is 3 inches deep and only 4 inches wide. It's kind of got some wacky geometry. We went through about 6 iterations or 7 iterations of this geometry. You can see it on the envelope show if you want to see the history of how these waterfalls came to be. This is the plunge version, so it's very similar, but this one goes straight down. This one has a horizontal rod hole, so you can attach a suspended perch like this to give somewhere for your miniatures to stand. You can also use the horizontal rod port to suspend a driftstone if you want to get high fantasy and have a floating driftstone out above your waterfall. Also an option. We also have the rock spurner rope that you could hang off there and have a rope hanging down and the like. Both of these pieces have the same leading edge here so that they can stack interchangeably. So this could stack on here seamlessly, or this can stack on here seamlessly. It's the same leading edge that the spillout has, and it's the same leading edge here. So you can stack this one on there seamlessly, this one on there seamlessly, or you can go on top and put this on there seamlessly, or on here seamlessly. So they look maybe a little more complicated than they are, perhaps. So we have this cutout escarpment here, cutout cliff. It is 38 millimeters high. It's 6 inches long, 3 inches deep. So it matches up, other than height, with our escarpment pieces. And if you put it on the spill out, it matches up with the escarpments. The idea was we didn't want to have too many fiddly pieces with these waterfalls. You want to be able to very quickly kind of build a waterfall and go. So the base level, you put your chosen waterfall piece into the cutout, drop it on your spill out, and then put it in line with some escarpments, and off we go. And then for the full effect, you're going to want to put it on a terrain tray. So let's use this one that is the river mouth, and is designed to look great with a waterfall spilling into it, or just a river sort of spilling out into a lake. In this case, we use it for a waterfall. So we can overlap this however much you want. So we're going to stack that on. We'll throw a couple of escarpments on either side. And then we're going to take 4 stilts. We're going to put them magnet side up, so they stick to the bottom of our Raging River terrain tray. This feeds our water into the waterfall and down. And then let's make this one a mountainous waterfall up above. So we're gonna just start building. Essentially gonna dress up this terrain tray with a steep ravine, bring down. It goes down from there. At the bottom, you can dress up the base with like one of these steppy stones or a suspended perch, something if you like. Throw it in the water. Right, so it's like a basic stone waterfall going down. And we could also come up here. We could use the banks, the swamp banks. Right? So these were designed so that they would fit really nicely over the top, something like this. So then you could, like this if you wanted to. Maybe we'll go straight over here. We can dress this up with some banks. There we have a nice wooded river, and then maybe we'll do the same thing down below here. And so the base here is designed to be the exact size if you take one of the swamp banks and line it up. The banks line up perfectly with the base of the waterfall. Like that. We can also, if you want, we could go wider. If you were going to do open it up to a big lake, you could throw a bank there, go out wide in either direction, go this way, go that wide. You could also knock everything back You could just go right up to the wall if you wanted, something like that, and then maybe dress up the corner with a piece like such. You could offset by a couple inches and use your 2x2 forest floors. Something like that. Offset this. Such. What if you don't want to use a spill out? You can also, because now we're up 62 millimeters. What if we only want to go up 2 inches? If we go 50 millimeters, so what we can do. I'm gonna remove the spill out. Drop this thing down. Sans spill out. Knock these stilts down to 38 millimeters. Throw the banks on. Now our waterfall. Now we're up a total of 50 millimeters. Waterfalls flowing seamlessly, and that's the sort of the core reason behind the geometry of having the spill out separate from the falls was so that we could, because generally you're going to want to be feeding this with a terrain tray which is 1 floor's height lower than the ground around it, because the banks are going to transition down to it. So being able to add or remove a spill out lets you change the height by 1 floor's thickness. Similarly, if you wanted to, you could use the spill out up on the top. You could do something like this if you wanted to feed it from another layer up like this and build out a whole bunch of escarpments topside. Or you could have a spill out on the bottom and then a spill out on the top if you wanted to go up 74 millimeters. And you have tons of options. So speaking of going up higher, let's go up. Let's go to Waterfall Heights. So we're going to put the spill out back in, kick that in place. We're adding 50 millimeters to our terrain tray here. So now we're going to take our second waterfall and we're going to pop it on top of our first, back 1 inch. So if you want for stability, you can put a pair of 50 millimeter stilts on the back under there. So what I should probably do is take this, you see that? Boop, another stilt. There. Set this back 1 inch. All right. So now our waterfall lines up with this terrain tray, and it's 1 floor height lower than these escarpments. So you can use these little banks pieces to level it out, or you can use the ledges. If you've got your Aaron throw ledges, they work really nicely. You can have them come all the way out over the water if you want, something such. And then similarly, you can build right in line like this if you'd like. You can also use these banks transitions if you want to floor. You can also, if you want to stay rocky, you can use your trifecta banks and mountain floors topside here. Use something like that if you want to stay all stone. You can also then throw your suspended perch in there. Give you guys a little way to work your way across. Also, because these are 4 inches wide, they play really nicely with our Aaron Thor Cliffs pieces, as well as we can look at the caverns pieces. Let's go take a look at how that works. The waterfalls, because they're 38 millimeters high, play really nicely with our Aaron Thor Cliff pieces. So let's take a look at that. So we have I put down two 2x1 mountain floors to hold up the back of this, because there's a cutout in the back here for when you're sitting on the cutout cliff. It nestles on there, and then we can dress up the sides with our anthro pieces, right? So those just fit relatively seamlessly up against it, and then you could throw some 38mm stilts under here, and then right up there you could build some more. You could build some more cliffs if you wanted to, like something lines, kind of build out a river, or you could just dress it up with some of your rocks on the side, something like that. It could be a pond. Such. You could also just use your trifecta ledges again and your mountain floors, which are buried under here. And throw your some rocks around the edge, something like that. And you can same thing. You could build up 2 levels high. You could also, if you wanted, you could put the cutout cliff in there and work around that thing. You could lots of fun. Fun ways we can build with this thing. Yeah, so it plays pretty nicely with your anthro cliff pieces. Also, while you're playing with it, if you want, you could do a gag where maybe they do something, they part the water, there's some magic. You can pop this out and you can replace it, if you've got it, with the hidey hole escarpment, right? And use this as a cave behind the waterfall. Swap that in. And that would transition us nicely into caves. So speaking of caves, let's see how this the waterfall plays with our caverns pieces. So these waterfalls also work with our caverns pieces. So maybe you've transitioned into the caves through here, or maybe these are spilling into your caves, but let's take a look. So we could take this piece. We have this transition piece from Caverns Deep, which it plays pretty nicely with this. So we could put this down, do something like this. You could, we could dress it up with some of these. We could do things like that. Something smelling out, and then this can nestle right on top of there. Something like that. We could throw a couple of 2x1s under the back. If you want, you could build like right up to the side of it with your caverns pieces, or you could build it in. Let's say you could do that and build it right into your caverns wall. You could do something like that. You could also use this thing to transition onto the top of this. Maybe we just have this put in like that. You can have your banks and work with it. And this could sit on top like this. The leading edge of the spill out lines up really nicely with the top of the waterfall. You can throw maybe these banks, something like that. Plays pretty well. You can pull this out if you want. You could introduce some swamp banks in your caverns. Here's another fun one. Your water tiles, if you've got them, line up with the top of this. So if you put this on, say put it on the spill out, put this on the spill out, you can put these banks either side, and then line those up there, and you could build some water tiles into it. Similarly, you could have this spill out into water tiles. Ooh, this could work. You could do a double spill out like this if you wanted. So it works pretty well. And you could do a thing with water tiles, and this feeds down into water tiles. So we do this. Fence pieces. Get something like that. Something like this. Gives you some compatibility options to play with. All right, compatibility with our caverns. Check.